Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Wednesday, July 16th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Texas game in 45 days, the game against Michigan in 136 days. If you're planning your next event, make it unforgettable with Grateful Griddle, Columbus's favorite food truck, serving up smash burgers, gourmet sandwiches, and good vibes. Book your catering today at gratefulgriddleoh.com. Today we're going to be welcoming in our buddy Tony Gerdeman of BuckeyeHuddle.com. He's been writing his 50 for 50 series, counting down to the start of Big Ten Media Days, which is, yes, now less than a week away. Almost feel that desert heat on my skin, Tony. But you're doing one of the features in that is doing predictions for not only the Buckeyes. We'll have a Buckeye Weekly show that you'll get to listen to this week about some of the Ohio State related predictions. You're also doing some national college football predictions. One of the ones that you did that I liked, the first one featuring a former Georgia quarterback, now at a new school, doing some stuff that, well, we've seen him do in Athens before.
Yeah, the first one that I'm mentioning here, Carson Beck, Miami quarterback, will throw multiple interceptions against Notre Dame. They opened the season this year, which is another one of those interesting season openers. It's a Sunday night game, which everybody will get to watch. We'll all be tuned in. And what a fall from grace that Carson Beck had last year after going into last year as the presumptive number one overall draft pick of the 2025 NFL draft. Throws like 12 interceptions over the course of a season. Now, Tom, positively or negatively, he only threw interceptions in like 5 games last year. So that's 7 or 8 games where he did not throw an interception. However, he had 3 interception games against Alabama, Texas, and Florida, and also 2 interceptions against Mississippi State. However, the Bulldogs went 3-1 in those 4 games. So even when he throws interceptions, he's still really good.
You did not touch on my favorite line from this, which was Miami begins defense of their Pop-Tarts Bowl runner-up season by opening at home at against Notre Dame. No notes, 10 out of 10 right there. Yeah, that was, that's one that I think is, this is not a bold prediction show. This is just a prediction show. I think this is one that's like, yeah, I could absolutely see that happening. It doesn't feel at all like a reach. Yesterday's show, we did the unbreakable records in Ohio State football. This feels like an extremely reachable Carson Beck kind of typical game against a halfway decent opponent in some ways.
I will say Carson Beck has thrown 70 passes in an opening game over his career in the opening game. No interceptions. So he's never thrown an interception in week 1. Does that mean he's absolutely overdue?
College football history in the making. You heard it here first. That Sunday night. Now, aren't you glad that they didn't move the Texas-Ohio State game to Sunday night? You can sit at home and watch Carson Beck throw the ball to the wrong team. That'll be great. Now, you get the game out of the way at Saturday early afternoon. Everyone's going to be happy. This is why people love Big Noon Kickoff, Tony. All right. Speaking of college football, I guess let's move on to the second one. This is one that this one involves another transfer portal quarterback. This is someone who left Ohio State and headed out west to play for Cal, famously on the Atlantic coast.
Yeah, famously. So this one is that Devin Brown, former Ohio State quarterback, will match his career totals in one game. Now, what are his career totals? He is 27 of 48 passing for 331 yards with 3 touchdowns and 1 interception. And as I wrote in that prediction, that basically looks like a line against Virginia. Like this is that looks like a line for a quarterback for basically any middling program. I don't know when it's going to happen, and I will say this hasn't happened. A Cal quarterback throwing for 331 yards hasn't happened since 2022, so they're not as pass happy as they might need to be, but this feels pretty doable. I don't know that all of those things are going to happen in the same game, but the 48 passes maybe is the one that stands out most to me. That is maybe the one that's going to be tough to match.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I could definitely see 27 completions in a game, 331 yards in a game, 3 touchdowns in a game. Any of those are reachable, not necessarily in the same game, like you said, but yeah, all reachable. My big takeaway from that was it feels like he played more than that. It feels like we talked about him so much more than that, and we saw him on the field. I mean, you saw him on the field a decent amount, but he just felt like he just couldn't stay healthy and didn't, had the Cotton Bowl where he, finally got a start and then immediately got hurt. And yeah, you look at those numbers and they just all feel low to me. I would have probably taken the over on all of those if you'd given them to me as over-unders for his Ohio State career. Next up, another former Big Ten quarterback, Bo Pula, feel that like he's going to throw for more yards than Drew Aller. And this is, you have a, this is a little bit of a Penn State versus former Penn State thing going here.
Yeah, Bo Pula, the backup, the running threat quarterback last year for Penn State, who transferred before the playoffs because he had no choice. He had to transfer. He's now at Missouri, and so I'm expecting him to have a better year than Drew Aller in terms of statistics. Will throw for more yards. And it throws us back to the Will Levis versus Sean Clifford debate. Clifford still threw the ball more, but Will Levis, of course, was certainly got more attention. But this one is interesting to me because Drew Aller, for all of the hype and the attention and the love, he threw for 207.9 yards per game last year. Like that's not a lot. And Brady Cook at Missouri, which is where Bo Pula is now, threw for 211 yards last year. So won't shock me at all. In fact, I think it should happen that Bo Pula throws for more yards than Drew Aller this year. Penn State's running attack is obviously very, very good. Tyler Warren is gone, so maybe I don't think the passing numbers can possibly go down, but I think Missouri will throw the ball around a little bit more than Penn State.
Yeah, this is an interesting one because you have so many different factors. Penn State's wide receivers were just awful last year to the point that they have to be better this year. And they've brought in another batch of transfers. We'll be talking about all of those guys at Big Ten Media Days next week. But they bring in a bunch of new transfers, but you lose Tyler Warren. But Missouri lost a couple of their pretty talented wide receivers as well from last year's team. So I would think that you're probably going to see Penn State be a little more pass happy than they were last year, at least in terms of wide receivers. But I don't know if the numbers actually get that much higher because you might see a lot of that going to running backs, frankly, the way they use those two backs out of the backfield. So, all right, that's number 3. Number 4, this is a little spicy. This will cause some heartburn in South Bend if it happens. Notre Dame and Boise State will be a 1-score game in the fourth quarter. Oh boy, what will the folks in SEC country say if that's the case?
Well, and remember, Boise State and Oregon had that incredible game last year. That was a 1-score game both ways, back and forth. And then also don't forget that Northern Illinois went into South Bend last year and won 16-14. And so no, Ashton Jeanty is off to the NFL, so Boise State won't have him. But Northern Illinois didn't have him last year when they rushed for 190 yards on Notre Dame. So now I think Boise State getting to the playoffs last year, they are a kind of a made program in terms of they've played in big games. So this going to Notre Dame is special. We can all admit that. But they've played in special games before. And I would expect them to have a really good chance of being back in the playoffs. And if they can get this win, then go ahead and lock them in almost. And if they don't, all they have to do is just be the highest ranked group of 5, group of 6 team anyway. But I think this is going to be a good one. It'll be a fun one.
Yeah, it'll definitely be a fun one. And you've got certainly some new faces for Notre Dame this year as well. So yeah, I like that one. That's a good one as well. It's going to be such an interesting year to see how these teams coming off of these really senior heavy seasons and teams who are losing a lot of veteran players can sort of adapt to that. You saw last year did not go great for Michigan up to a certain point. But how will that happen with what will that look like for Ohio State? What will that look like for Notre Dame, who maybe doesn't quite recruit at the Ohio State level? So going to be a lot of interesting teams to watch this year, and definitely that Boise State Notre Dame game, definitely one to watch. So that will do it for today. Hope you guys enjoyed that one, a little different. And if you want to hear a little more of an Ohio State focused theme on one of these shows, Tony and I did a Buckeye Weekly episode on that, just talking about some of his Ohio State predictions. Again, not bold. We'll get to the bold predictions later, but interesting Ohio State predictions, stuff to talk about, a little grist for the mill as we count down the days to Big Ten Media Days, Tuesday through Thursday next week. We'll be out there in Las Vegas for all the fun in the sun, actually inside the hotel and hopefully air-conditioned, well air-conditioned. But we will be out there with lots of coverage of all of that for you Tuesday through Thursday next week at BuckeyeHuddle.com and, of course, at YouTube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.